I gotta make sure this does not happen. So he sits there and cock blocks this thoroughbred the entire time. So as far as he's concerned, mission accomplished. Nobody ever needs to know that Reckless got deflowered on his watch. It's gonna be fine.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna be checking out America's Warhorse Marine Sergeant Reckless by the Fat Electrician guys. Yes, had a ton of recommendations to check this out, specifically after the Devil Duck Marine video that we reacted to. That was awesome to see by the Fat Electrician, so of course go check that out if you have not. Yeah, awesome to see and I guess learn about these animals that are used in warfare, either for I guess morale purposes or in this case a horse. I'd have to assume for logistical purposes more than anything else. Yeah, I guess we're gonna learn about him. I don't really know what war this is gonna be about. World War II, maybe Korea, maybe even Vietnam. I got no idea. Of course, if you guys enjoy, make sure you guys leave a like. And yeah, without any further delay, guys, I say we get right into this video. Captions are already on, quality 1080p. Let's leave a like ourselves. Full screen.
What if I told you that if it were...
Oops. Without any further delay, let's get it.
What if I told you that if it were not for the actions of a single beer-drinking horse over the course of 48 hours, South Korea as we know it today would probably not exist? Today we're talking about the greatest war horse of all time, the highest ranking animal in Marine Corps history, and the hero of Outpost Vegas. Ladies and gentlemen,
Outpost Vegas. Oh wow.
All right, before we get too far in this video, we do have a sponsor.
Great to see that, like, real footage.
1, I got bills, just gonna be honest with you. 2, I gotta pay the editor. And 3, in the case of this particular video, back in the day, it used to be a rule that whenever Sergeant Reckless did any type of publicity, whoever did it had to make a $1,000 donation to a Marine Corps charity, and I am gonna honor that since I'm making this video about her. That being said, this video is brought to you by Raid VPN. Wait, no.
Whoa.
Nord Shadow Legends. No. NordVPN, that's the one.
NordVPN.
I tried to make a funny skit ad for this video where like me and my wife were both in bed and instead of using a condom, I used NordVPN and then I accidentally put a condom on my phone, but my skit failed miserably.
Okay, get out of here, Michelle. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. If I used NordVPN, my dog wouldn't have been able to find me because I'd be in Singapore, actually.
Of course.
NordVPN. Your dog can find you, but your internet service provider can't.
Right. Oh.
Okay, so believe it or not, I actually do use NordVPN in real life, but I use it for a different reason than any other talking point you've ever heard in a Nord ad ever, so I'm just gonna go ahead and show you guys that today. All right, so let's say I wanna start working on a new video, so I hop over to Google to find some sources. We pull up Google, and let's see what we come up with. Let's say I wanna do a video on Imo Koivunen.
Extra small condoms, what?
That, here's what pops up. I've got a Wikipedia page, and then a bunch of websites that just regurgitate the same article over and over and over again. Now, I know that Imo is from Finland, so if I hop over to NordVPN and I actually change my location from America to Finland, hopefully, since it's his native language, it'll give me some better sources. 2 seconds later, I'm now connected to Finland, and as far as anybody on the internet's concerned, I am a Finnish guy in Finland browsing the web.
How convenient.
We just go back and I hit refresh, and as you can see, I have a bunch of different sources all about Imo Koivunen. So we're just gonna pick one, then I go up here, I hit translate, and now I have a new source of information for my video on Imo that I never would have been able to find were it not for NordVPN. And it has a bunch of other use cases on top of that, so if you wanted to check it out for yourself, you can go to nordvpn.com/thefatelectrician. Now let's get back to this video. Our story
No, that code's probably expired. I don't know if it is or not. Of course, he's got a code there. Go use that. I know last video I did that and had a NordVPN sponsorship in it. Got fucking copyright strikes. So if you guys see that ad the first week or so, or maybe after the first like 2-3 weeks after this is uploaded, comment if you guys see this ad after like a month or so. And if it's still there, we're good. You know what I mean? But if you didn't see that ad at all, you know what I mean? We're gonna probably cut to like around this part and you're gonna be like, oh, that was weird. What a weird cut. Yeah, that's why. Okay. So you know.
NordVPN.com/thefatelectrician. Now let's get back to this video. Our story takes place during the Korean War, which is kind of an issue because most people know absolutely nothing about the Korean War, and it's kind of important for context. So
very true.
We're going to do a real quick and dirty oversimplification of the entire thing. Super casual, 60 seconds. We're going to learn more about the Korean War than most people do in their entire K-12 education. Go ahead and start the timer. Here we go. July 25th, 1950. Communist North Korea, backed by Communist China and the Soviet Union, decides that they are going to attack South Korea and try to take over the entire peninsula. Over the course of the next 5 to 6 weeks, they would almost accomplish their their goal, beating the South Korean military all the way to the base of the peninsula, and it is not looking good. But luckily, NATO shows up at the last minute to save the day. The NATO forces are like 90% American, but there's also some British, some Canadian, some Australian, and like 12 other countries on top of that, and they have a...
I want to pause right there, not to cut them off.
There's also some British, some Canadian.
Just to show this, the participants in war. A lot of people don't realize just how many fucking, like, I guess, belligerents, participants in war, or in this war that there actually were. Like, you can see participating on the United Nations sides. Obviously, you had, like, well, Korea itself, but lots of European nations, the United States, of course, UK, Canada, we were there, of course, Colombia, a lot of South American nations, too. Didn't really realize that. Turkey was there. South Africa was there, the Philippines were there, a lot of places that you don't even realize that were actually like involved, I guess. And then obviously in North Korea side, you had the Chinese spill in, right? And I don't know to what extent the Soviet Union was involved. I don't know if they had any actual boots on the ground, or if it was more the case of like maybe air support and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Again, most people don't know anything about the Korean War. I am one of those people. I don't know a ton. I know, obviously bits and pieces. I know like the bit that I've researched, right, and that we've researched together on the channel, I guess here. But yeah, I'm not too knowledgeable on it. Very, very interesting to see this chart here.
And some Australian and like 12 other countries on top of that, and they have a huge amphibious landing in Incheon, and they proceed to turn the tables on the North Koreans entirely, beating them all the way back into North Korea, and then they continue to advance, beating them all the way up the peninsula and almost to the border of China. So now the Chinese government's kind of shitting their pants because NATO's like 30 miles off their border, and they can't have NATO coming up in their territory.
This is when the Chinese come in, right?
Their democracy and their human rights and their food. They've got to do something about this. So China comes out of left field with their big ass military, joins the fight, takes NATO completely by surprise, beats them all the way back down the peninsula to pretty much the original North and South Korean border, and this is where our story begins. I'm not trying to brag, but that was under 60 seconds, and I got a Lord of the Rings reference in there. I'm having a really good day. Okay.
I knew the basic gist of it, like the basic history of it, but it's all these like little stories in between, and I guess like the actual build up, like again, a lot of people don't talk about why it actually ended up happening, right? Such a crazy story, such a crazy war, and just how many people were involved too, man. So many people involved. Like it's shocking, it doesn't get more attention, straight up.
I'm not trying to brag, but that was under 60 seconds, and I got a Lord of the Rings reference in there. I'm having a really good day. Okay, now that we're on the same page, October 1952, here's what the front line looks like. Each one of those triangles represents a hill, and on top of those hills is a bunch of NATO troops. Basically, at this point in time, NATO is now just trying to hold this line long enough to force the communists to sign a peace treaty and preserve South Korea. Because, as it turns out, this long string of hills is almost the exact same border that South Korea was before, so if they can utilize these hills to hold the high ground, maybe they can get this accomplished. Why do they want to hold the high ground? Well, because the high ground's awesome, isn't it, Anakin? Yeah, anyways, if I could bring your attention to the furthest triangle on the left where it says the Nevada cities. That is not actually one hill, but three smaller hills in a close triangular formation, commonly referred to as the Iron Triangle. Each one of these hills is named after one of the three Nevada gambling cities, Reno, Carson, and Vegas. The reason that NATO named them after the Nevada gambling cities is because it is a gamble as to whether or not the Marine Corps is going to be able to hold that position. Because if Chinese Communist forces are going to try to break through this line, it's probably going to be right there at the Nevada cities, because then they will have a direct path to the capital of Seoul, and if they're able to capture Seoul, it'll be absolutely devastating to NATO's ability to negotiate a peace treaty. So the United States Marine Corps absolutely has to hold this position, and most importantly, they have to hold Outpost Vegas because it is the highest of the three hills, and if they lose Vegas, they are almost guaranteed to lose the other two. All right, so here's the plan. Each one of these hills is going to have 40 Marines and 2 Navy corpsmen on top. These hills are so steep that the only way to get up there is by foot. They're like a 45-degree angle all the way up.
So sorry, I just want to make sure I'm not mistaken on that. So 40 Marines, that's about like a platoon of Marines, and corpsmen, Navy corpsmen. Those are essentially medics, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's what the Navy calls their medics. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to make sure that's right. Also, very cool, the reasoning, the logic behind why they named those hills, what they named them, the gambling cities. Because we don't know if we're actually going to be able to hold them or not. Very, very like cool reasoning, I guess, behind that. Good bit of history.
That the only way to get up there is by foot.
These little stories are so cool.
45-degree angle all the way up. So the Marines aren't able to get trucks up there. They're not able to get tanks up there. The only thing they can get up there is barbed wire, shovels for digging trenches, guns, and 75mm recoilless rifles. These recoilless rifles are pretty much going to be the Marines' only chance of defending themselves if they do get attacked. The problem with it is, though, since you can't get a truck up on this hill, now the Marines have to carry all the ammunition up
That would
themselves,
fucking suck.
and each shell weighs approximately 24 pounds. So because carrying these shells up this enormous hill one or two at a time absolutely sucks, the Marines get permission to buy a horse or a mule or a donkey or something. So they go down to Seoul and they start looking. And obviously, the first place they choose to investigate is the horse racetrack at Seoul. Is there probably going to be a pack animal at a racetrack for sale? No, probably not, because that's racehorses, and racehorses don't make good pack animals. But that is the one place that's going to have alcohol and gambling, so you best believe that's where the Marines are going to check first. But as fate would have it, they would meet up with a horse trainer and jockey by the name of Kim Hook Moon, who would be willing to reluctantly sell his horse, Chim Hai, which translates to flame in the morning. He absolutely did not want to sell this horse. He described it as the most beautiful and intelligent horse on the planet, but he did it for $250 because he had to buy his sister a prosthetic leg. I believe her name was Peggy, or was it Eileen? Anyways, the Marines buy this horse, they throw her in a trailer, they take her back to camp. From there, she immediately goes into what the Marines call hoof camp. Get it? Hoof camp, boot camp. That's funny. Moving on. The first thing they do is try to get the horse acclimated to battle by firing the recoilless rifle near her.
I will say, what a crazy, like, way to get a horse. I mean, yeah, you bought a horse, but it's definitely not going to be a horse suited to that job. I don't know what exactly kind of breeds of horse they have in Korea, especially at this time. I don't know if they have many workhorse breeds or if it's mostly like donkeys they rely on. You know, I've never been to Korea, right? So I'm not trying to speak on that. But it seems like getting an expensive horse for this purpose seems like not a great idea, you know, not the best, but I mean, any horse is better than fucking carrying it yourself. And it's still a horse at the end of the day. It's still gonna, you know, carry some shit for sure. Very cool name also, that I guess the translation came from. I wonder when they actually name the horse Sergeant Reckless. I guess we'll see, maybe after he finishes boot camp, hoof camp.
Funny. Moving on. The first thing they do is try to get the horse acclimated to battle by firing the recoilless rifle near her. And the first time they fired this rifle, this horse jumped 4 feet straight into the air and freaked the fuck out. Then they calmed her down, they fired it again, still scared out of her mind. And they fired it again and again. And by the 8th time they fired it, she was completely calm, and a recoilless rifle never scared her ever again. From there, they taught her how to survive. She learned how to avoid barbed wire. She learned not to get too close to the back end of the recoilless rifles because the blowback could hurt her. She learned that whenever a Marine yelled incoming, she needed to run to a nearby bunker, or if she wasn't near a bunker, she learned how to lay down. After she completed her training, the Marines ordered her a special saddle to be made and shipped all the way from America that would allow her to carry a bunch of recoilless rifle rounds. Until then, though, she began helping the Marines any way she could, mainly by helping string communications cable between the different outposts and the ammunition point, and she could string more cable than 10 men combined. At this point, the Marines really started to like this horse, so they decided they were going to give her a new name, Reckless, named
I will say too, and okay, so there's where you get the name from, not to pause there, but yeah, no, like very cool to see the use, even in like, I guess like, in this case, it's the 50s, right? But even like a modern warfare, Cold War warfare, even to that point, just how useful horses and the like are, right? Again, if you don't have logistic capabilities, if the country you're fighting in doesn't have roads, you know, if you can't get a truck in there, you know, and I guess more modern equipment, you know, you can start cutting down trees, plowing through bush, whatever have you, right? But you know, if that's not possible, maybe you're on a hill, a mountainside, like these Marines are in this case. Yeah, man, you still need animals, man. They're still very applicable even to this day. I feel like a lot of countries, you know, a lot of, I will say poorer countries for sure still utilize animals, I feel like, to this day, you know. If not, utilize them in their actual doctrine. Most countries have a ceremonial brigade, I think, of animals as well, like horses or a mounted brigade to some extent.
Really started to like this horse, so they decided they were going to give her a new name, Reckless, named after the recoilless rifles, which were commonly referred to as reckless rifles. And from that point on, she just became another one of the guys, and that's exactly how the Marines started treating her. She began eating whatever the Marines were eating. She loved bacon and eggs, she loved beer, and apparently if you were ever having mixed drinks, Reckless would walk up to you, nudge you with her head, and stick out her lower lip and let you mix a mixed drink directly into her mouth. Then
What
her
the
special
fuck?
saddle shows up and she starts kicking ass on the battlefield. She delivers 6 rounds at a time, and she can make a trip from the ammo point to the firing position twice as fast as any man can, and he's only carrying 2 rounds. She delivers so much ammo that over the course of a couple battles, the Chinese actually start to target Reckless. And
Yeah,
this
they
ends up
probably
being
would.
a horrific mistake, because the millisecond that Marine Corps leadership figures out that they're trying to target Reckless, they flip the script, turn around to the Marines, and they're like, boys, they're trying to kill Reckless so they can eat her because they're starving communists. At which point, all the Marines responded with... Okay, the Marines are absolutely furious. This is where...
Okay, obviously that's a bit of a, like, an oversimplification, because they're starving communists. They want to eat the horse. Now, I'm sure they are probably hungry, and they probably would eat the horse. That's not the reason why they want to shoot the horse. You know, you want to take out your enemy's logistical capabilities as quickly as you can. They see a horse ferrying 6 fucking AT capable shells up to a recoilless rifle. Yeah, they want to kill that fucking horse, right? It's such a boon to them, right? Given the environment that they have a horse, right? If the North Koreans are working without that capability, yeah, it's absolutely an advantage. You want to equal the playing field. You're going to target your enemy's logistical capabilities. It's no different than targeting like a truck behind the lines, essentially, right? Or anything to that degree. But yes, they probably would kill and eat the horse. That's probably not a lie, but that's not the only reason, right? Of course, I just want to point that out.
Okay, the Marines are absolutely furious. This is worse than fucking with Doc. We've got multiple Docs. We've only got one Reckless. We can't allow this to happen. And the Marines begin fighting that much harder. And they have more ammo to fight even harder with, because Reckless is right there with them, bearing ammo the entire time. From this point on, they begin dominating every skirmish that they take part in. At one point, they're working adjacent to the Australian military, and the Australians are so blown away by Reckless that they come up to meet her after the skirmish, and they actually give her one of their campaign hats as a reward for being such a badass on the battlefield.
That's pretty
Reckless
sick.
and the Marines fight and hold the line.
Liking
for the
all
next
this, like,
5 months,
footage
and by
from
March of
the actual
1953,
battles and
peace
shit.
talks between North and South Korea are well underway, and it's beginning to finally look like this war might come to a peaceful resolution. But on March 26th, Chinese forces would launch a major offensive trying to break through the line at the Nevada cities with 4,000 men. For the next 4 days, the Marine Corps and the Chinese fight over these hills. The Chinese take the hill, the Marines take it back. The Chinese take the hill, the Marines take it back. Eventually, it got to the point where nobody could hold the top of the hill, and you just had the Chinese on one slope of the hill and the Marines on the other. They said that there was so much artillery flying in both directions for the entirety of 4 days that the sound of individual explosions gave way to what seemed like a constant and consistent roar. For 4 days, they were completely unable to verbally communicate, and they could only talk to each other via hand signals. And because of all this noise, the Marine Corps forward observers weren't able to effectively communicate with the Marine Corps artillery and mortars, meaning that the artillery and mortars were just firing blindly into the general vicinity of where the enemy should be. Meaning that the only effective fire the Marine Corps has in this fight is coming from the recoilless rifles, because they don't require a forward observer and they don't require communication. The men with the recoilless rifles are the ones spotting the enemy and firing the gun. The recoilless rifle...
Now, I know recoilless rifles definitely had a AT capability. Did they... I'm assuming they must have made rounds for... HE rounds for the recoilless rifle as well. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. But just given the context of this, like, I'm definitely assuming, like, they must have HE shells for them, because, like, they're definitely not firing just AP fucking munitions out just, like, fucking, you know, just, like, Korean or Chinese dismounts, right? Like, surely.
With the recoilless rifles
That'd
are
be
the
brutal,
ones
dude.
spotting the enemy and firing the gun. The recoilless rifles are now the key to winning this battle, and they absolutely have to stay up and running, and they have to get this ammunition up to these hills to fight back. The problem is the ammo point is 750 yards away from the firing position, up a 45-degree angle hill that is constantly being pounded with enemy artillery fire, while it's also covered with smoke and white phosphorus. But that doesn't change the fact that the ammunition has to get there, so they load 8 rounds into Reckless's pack and they send her up the hill. And the men at the ammunition depot know that it's probably the last time they're ever going to see her again, because they've just sent her off to her death. But despite that, she somehow makes it to the firing position. The Marines there unload the ammo and stick a wounded Marine on her back as they send her back down the hill, also feeling as though they're sending her to her death, and it's the last time they're ever going to see their favorite horse. But they're wrong. Over and over and over again, they're wrong, because every 20 minutes like clockwork, Reckless is back at the firing position, bringing more ammunition, and then she's back at the ammunition depot, dropping off wounded Marines. And she does this all day long, and with every trip she makes, she becomes less and less of a horse, and more the only sign of hope that these men have. Because of this little horse that's quite literally an animal of prey, whose only defensive measure to danger is to run away, can stand here and fight through all of this, then fuck, maybe they can too. Despite being struck by shrapnel twice, Reckless kept the Marines so well stocked with ammunition that they managed to melt one of the barrels of the 75mm recoilless rifles. On the first day of battle alone, she made 51 round trips to the firing line, covering over 35 miles, delivering 386 rounds of ammunition, totaling over 9,000 pounds, and that's not including all the Marines that she carried back down the hill.
Very amazing that, I don't know if she had a handler that was like leading, I guess, the horse up and down this hill, or if the horse was just like trained, I guess, to go from point A to point B. I'm guessing that might be more the case here. I don't know the specifics. But yeah, you see right there, 386 rounds. Like, no shit, they're targeting that horse. Like, that is insane. Like that amount of logistical capability in the environment you're fighting in is such a fucking boon. And it also means that men are able to actually fight, right? Rather than having guys ferry ammunition to and from a point all fucking day, having to rotate guys out. Now you're exhausted because you've been carrying fucking shit up a hill all day. You know, you actually have more fighting men available to actually hold the line as well and conduct combat maneuvers. Yeah, no, like, absolutely amazing and incredible too. You can definitely understand like how those Marines would feel. Like, you don't want to see that horse get killed, you know. That's an animal you've come attached to too as well. And yeah, they're putting wounded Marines on its back, sending it down that hill. If it got killed at all during that time, that Marine is obviously, he's probably not going to make it either. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely brutal situation. Goes to show you just how desperate the situation in Korea really was for a lot of combatants on both sides, I guess, you know.
9,000 pounds, and that's not including all the Marines that she carried back down the hill. At the end of the first day of battle, they took Reckless, gave her all the food and water that she would eat or drink, and then they laid her down to bed. She got to sleep for 6 hours before the first enemy artillery shell impacted, and at that, she was back up and ready to do it all over again, and she repeated her performance from the day prior. At the end of the second day, nobody held Outpost Vegas at the top of the hill. The Chinese held one slope, and the Marines held the other, and it is at this point that the Marine Corps leadership decided that if they can't hold the high ground, there just isn't going to be a high ground anymore. They called in the Marine Air Wing, and on the morning of the third day of battle, the Marine Corps dropped 28 tons of ordnance on top of the hill, completely leveling every defensive structure and anything else that was up there. By the end of the third day, the Marines had taken the top of the hill where Outpost Vegas used to be, but then they saw that the Chinese were falling back into a ravine and they were going to go around the hill entirely. This is absolutely terrible because there aren't enough Marines on Outpost Vegas, Carson, and Reno combined to be able to go down there and stop the Chinese. If they're going to stand any chance in a fight, they have to have the high ground, so they absolutely cannot give it up. The problem is, on the back side of the hill that Outpost Vegas is on, is where the ammunition depot is, as well as a mess tent that's been converted into an aid station with over 200 wounded Marines, and there's nothing that the Marines on top of the outpost can do to stop them. Then the Marines at Outpost Carson get an idea, and they send a runner with a note to the aid station as fast as they can. He gives the note to the commander of the aid station, who then tries to read the note to all 200 wounded Marines, but the artillery fire is so loud that he can't be heard. So he resorts to just handing the note to one Marine, who hands it to the next, and the next, and the next. And after reading the note, every Marine hangs his head for a second and gets on his feet, because the note reads, Chinese coming around the hill, dropping smoke, walk out into the smoke, throw grenades at smell of garlic. Apparently the Chinese military at this point smelled like garlic. I have no idea why, but it was a thing. And
what? We used to do night patrols in the paddy fields. It was terrifying. The good thing about the Chinese soldiers with this was that they chewed garlic like we chew gum, so you could smell them long before they got near you. That meant when you smelled garlic, you practically shat your pants. Damn. Michael Caine's war tour sparked garlic phobia. Damn, okay. That's kind of crazy. I had no idea. Yeah, I mean, maybe it has like some type of a cleaning effect on your teeth, maybe some type of medicinal property. I know garlic is very, very good for you. You know, maybe even just prevent bad breath, right? If you don't have toothpaste in the field, right? I know garlic is, you know, it's not the best smell, but it's better than just fucking ass breath out in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't know what the circumstance was. Very interesting though. Very interesting. And you can see the desperation. Yeah, they're flanking an aid station here. What are you going to do? You know, you got to get the wounded out of there. All the walking wounded, fucking get on out of there, like straight up. Anyone that can't walk, I mean, shit. You know, hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they got stretchers and stuff there. Yeah, we'll see.
Apparently the Chinese military at this point smelled like garlic. I have no idea why, but it was a thing. And after all 200 Marines had read the note, they all stood up, grabbed every grenade that they could find, and began walking 500 yards out to where this smoke screen was. It's 11 o'clock at night, it's dark, it's eerie, it's dead silent. The Marines aren't saying a word because they all know that this is probably going to be the end. They're calling for walking wounded to rejoin the fight, and that's never, ever a good thing.
No, that's
awful. They're making their
awful.
way to this smoke screen. They finally get there, and they take a few steps into the smoke, and they just stand there, and they wait. And they wait, and after 10 minutes, there's a faint smell of garlic, and it keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and the Marines know what's going to come next, but they just don't know when to start throwing these grenades. And then off in the distance in the smoke, they hear a single cough, and all the Marines just begin throwing these grenades into the smoke screen. Within a matter of seconds, they've completely exhausted their supply, throwing over 500 grenades into the smoke.
What?
And that was it. There was nothing left to do but stand there and wait for the enemy to come and get them. So that's what they did. They stood there.
There's no way they threw
and
500 grenades,
and the smell of
right?
garlic got a little bit fainter and a little bit fainter. And finally, the Marines are like, fuck it, I'm going to bed. So they walked back to the aid station, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and holy shit, the enemy artillery had completely stopped and the battle was over. They would later find out that the Chinese suffered over 4,000 casualties trying to break through the Marine line.
Oh my
and after
God.
the incident at 11 o'clock at night with the smoke screen and the aid station, they simply could not afford to lose any more men and were forced to retreat. So
Just
that was
gave
it.
up.
The Marines did it. Against all
Turn around.
odds, somehow the Marines managed to hold the line against a vastly superior force. Larger force, not superior force. Very important detail. Preventing the enemy from retaking Seoul, giving NATO the political leverage they needed to negotiate peace talks, and establishing and preserving the South Korea that we know today. And arguably, it's all because of a single horse that absolutely refused to give up on her fellow Marines. And because of this, Reckless is declared the hero of Outpost Vegas, and she is awarded the rank of corporal in the United States Marine Corps.
Corporal,
Shortly after the
okay.
battle, the Marines get rotated out by a brigade from the Turkish military, and the Marines finally get some much-deserved R&R. After that, the war's really starting to wind down, so the Marines are going to pack up all their...
So I'm curious how it works, because, like, you know, obviously I've never seen like an animal with a military rank. I know some people kind of briefly explained it, but like, can animals actually get military ranks, or is it completely honorary? You know what I mean? Kind of like a chaplain is like an honorary rank in a sense, you know? Or is it actually like a proper rank? Like, you will respect that fucking horse. Like, you know what I mean? Like, straight up fucking, like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, who knows? I mean, somebody let me know, actually, because like I'm actually genuinely curious about that.
Get some much-deserved R&R. After that, the war's really starting to wind down, so the Marines are going to pack up all their shit. They're going to board a Navy LST, which is basically an amphibious landing ship. That ship's going to take them all the way to Incheon, and then from there, they're just going to kind of hang out for a while and wait for the peace treaty to get signed. But since they're boarding a Navy vessel, they have to come up with a manifest of all the supplies, how many guys they got, all the equipment, how much everything weighs, yada, yada, yada. On the manifest, they write down 1 horse, Reckless, corporal type. The manifest makes its way to the captain of the LST. He's supposed to sign off on everything. He sees horse and he's like, what the fuck? The Marines are probably just messing with me. They're not actually bringing a horse on my ship. It's probably just like a pallet of beer and they wanted to let me know to account for the weight. It's fine.
Right.
He signs off on the manifest, sends it back. It's all good. Fast forward a couple of weeks, the Marines start loading all their stuff up on the boat. Then they go to bring Corporal Reckless up onto the ship and the captain is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Absolutely not. You're not bringing a horse on my ship. I've had the cleanest ship in the Navy for 2 years running and this horse is going to ruin that. To which the Marines are like, bro, you signed the manifest. This is happening, get over it. One thing leads to another, Corporal Reckless gets on that ship. Once they get Reckless, all the equipment and all the Marines on board, the ship takes off and all the Navy members are kind of making fun of Reckless and the Marines because it's not normal for Marines to care this much about an animal and they're not treating Reckless with the respect that she deserves. So when they demand that Reckless gets fed bacon, eggs, and beer just like the Marines, the Navy absolutely refuses and they said they're only going to give her cabbage and wheat. So that's what they do. This upsets Reckless's stomach and she proceeds to shit all over this boat for the next 3 days. A couple days later, Reckless starts feeling better. They're almost to Incheon.
Reckless felt fucking. Aw. I wonder what a horse's stomach, like, can they actually digest like meat and stuff like that? Can they digest eggs and stuff like that? I guess like clearly she must have been able to. I wonder if the calves and stuff actually like fucked up her stomach. I guess probably did because she's not used to it, whatever. But maybe even being on a boat, being on the sea, like seasickness. I don't know. Damn, dude. That would fucking suck, though. That would be such a mess on a ship like that, on an amphibious landing craft. Damn, dude, what a mess.
For this boat for the next 3 days. A couple days later, Reckless starts feeling better. They're almost to Incheon. They're about to port, get off this boat. Everything's going to be great. At this point, the Marine Corps officers have a brilliant idea. They decide, hey, us and our men just went through one of the bloodiest battles in American military history. The horse has been sick this entire time. You know what would make everybody a lot happier? If instead of just parking the fucking boat and getting off like normal people, what if we did an amphibious landing, you know, for fun and training and stuff? Wouldn't that be great? To which all the enlisted men are like, fucking fine, whatever, let's just do it and get it over with. So they make an amphibious landing in Incheon for training, but guess what? Reckless doesn't understand that it's for training. She thinks this shit's for real. So Reckless becomes the only horse in Marine Corps history to successfully make an amphibious landing. So the Marines
How the fuck does this work?
Incheon, and that's when they notice that there's a horse all over the news. It's in every newspaper, it's in every magazine, it's on every radio broadcast. The entire world is talking about this horse, but it's not Corporal Reckless. It's some horse over in America called Native Dancer. It's the greatest horse in the world. It's gonna win the Kentucky Derby, blah, blah, blah. And the Marines are kind of getting pissed because they know for a fact that they have the best horse in the world, and it's Corporal Reckless, not Native Dancer. And the Marines are willing to put their money where their mouth is because they pull together over $25,000, which is like over $250,000 in today's money. And they publicly offer it up as a wager to the owner of Native Dancer. Hey, bring your horse over to South Korea, beat Reckless in a race, and you can have the money. But this wasn't just going to be any race. This was going to be called the Paddy Derby. It was a 1.5-mile course uphill through rice paddies, and each horse wasn't going to have a rider, and they were going to have to carry 192 pounds of ammunition.
What the fuck? This is such... Okay, okay, I was gonna say, if this was just a straight up, like, race, like, you know what I mean? Okay, fair enough. But this seems very much padded in the Marines' favor here, I will say. The horse has got to carry the same weight as fucking Reckless is used to, you know, under the same conditions. I can understand the conditions, like the environment and stuff. Okay, fair enough. No rider. Okay, fair enough. But the weight, I mean, shit, dog. I mean, Reckless could probably unbridled, like, you know, she was a war horse, or not a war horse, a racehorse prior to obviously joining the Marines, I guess, for lack of a better word. So straight up could probably do it. Also, you see how like small she actually is. Like, she's definitely not like a big horse by any means.
Horse wasn't going to have a rider, and they were going to have to carry 192 pounds of ammunition. Unfortunately for everybody, Native Dancer's owner decided that they were not going to partake in this competition, so now the Marines kind of just hung out until the end of the war. Then the order comes down,
to be fair,
hey,
getting
pack your shit, it's time to go.
I will say, to be fair to him, getting a horse across the Pacific Ocean in the 50s probably wasn't an easy venture, especially, you know, a very luxurious, like, you know, wealthy horse such as this. Like, look how fucking big. Like, you can see, like, the comparison between how big Reckless is and how big this horse is. Jesus.
The Marines kind of just hung out until the end of the war. Then the order comes down, hey, pack your shit, it's time to go home. The Marines are like, cool, great, grand, wonderful. How are we going to get Reckless home? At which point, the leadership over at the Marine Corps is like, well, here's the thing. We don't think that the taxpayers would appreciate spending their money to transport this horse all the way back to America, so we're just going to abandon her here. To which the entire Marine Corps is like, the fuck you are. They go into full samurai mode. They're going to figure out how to get Corporal Reckless back to America through the back channels, whatever it takes.
Yeah, literally.
So they end up getting a hold of a public company called
Crazy
Pacific
that they were
Transport,
going to just,
and
like,
they convinced the owner
leave him
to take Reckless all the way back to America. The only problem is Pacific Transport doesn't go to South Korea. The closest he can get is to Japan. Okay, cool. Now we just have to get Reckless from South Korea to Japan. Reckless's platoon then gets a hold of the Marine Corps Air Wing, and they convince those Marines to let them smuggle Reckless onto a cargo plane going from South Korea to Japan. From there, they get Reckless onto the Pacific Transport ship. They take him all the way back to San Francisco, where the Marines are going to re-meet back up with Reckless. Okay, fast forward, the Marines make it to San Francisco. The Pacific Transport ship makes it to San Francisco. The Marines go there to pick up Reckless, at which point...
So straight up, again, not to pause like there, but what the fuck? So they put the horse on a cargo plane, sent it to Japan, and then from Japan, put it on a transport boat, and then the idea was to get it to San Fran. I wonder who was taking care of this horse the entire time. Like, if any of the Marines were, like, I don't know if it like you could be granted like leave to like kind of accommodate that, just like say it's for other reasons, whatever have you. I'll make my own way to fucking the US. Don't worry. Don't ask questions about it. Higher. Like I don't know how that would work. I doubt it, but
the Pacific transport ship makes it to San Francisco. The Marines go there to pick up Reckless, at which point they find out that Customs beat them there, and Customs called the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Agriculture said, we're going to have this horse destroyed because she could have diseases.
What?
The Marines then explained to this guy from the Department of Agriculture, look, this is a war hero. You're not killing this horse. She's coming with us. At which point, the Department of Agriculture guy is like, oh no, she's staying here and we're going to have her destroyed. Now, the Marines are kind of looking around at each other. They're looking at this pencil pusher from the Department of Agriculture. And the Marines, without saying a word, have just communicated with their eyes. They're
gonna kill this guy.
Kill this guy and
yeah.
the body. Department
Holy
of
shit.
Agriculture guy is finally starting to piece together how quickly and how far this might escalate, and he finally comes to his senses and he's like, okay, look, maybe, just maybe, I'll take a blood sample, I'll take it to the lab, and if she doesn't have any diseases, we'll release her. To which the Marines are like, that's a solid call. So the guy takes a blood sample, says it'll take me about a week to get the results. Go ahead and just leave the horse here. You guys can head out. At which the Marines said, nah, we're going to stay with the horse. And the agriculture guy is like, that's not necessary. And the Marines are like, oh,
it is.
Yeah, it is. Because
It
at
is.
this point, the Marines have come to the conclusion that the communists were trying to kill Reckless for food, and American bureaucracy is trying to kill Reckless just for fun, and they cannot let her out of their sight ever again. So, agriculture guy gets a blood sample, he leaves, the Marines hang out with the horse for a little while, and then they're like, oh, hey, there was a Marine Corps ball tonight. Reckless is a Marine. Let's go. Then they smuggled Reckless out of the ship. Then they smuggled her out of the port. Then somehow they got her all the way across San Francisco, into the building, up the freight elevator, and they made it to the Marine Corps ball.
What the
Reckless
fuck?
walks in, and she has just given every Marine in that room the excuse they were looking for to get absolutely hammered.
That's fucking awesome. Is that actually a picture from that night? They straight up smuggled this fucking horse out of the ship, out of the port, through San Fran, and then straight up just arrived to this ball with the horse. That's kind of awesome. I'm not gonna lie. That's actually really, really cool. Holy shit. Everyone, like, yeah, look, you can see them pointing and shit. Everyone's smiling. That's awesome. That's really cool. I like that.
He has just given every Marine in that room the excuse they were looking for to get absolutely hammered.
You see the
Everybody's
respect
drinking
they have
beer,
for it.
eating cake, including Corporal Reckless, and
Wow.
Reckless is also eating all the flower decorations. It's a great time. Everybody wakes up the next morning, super hungover. They all go out, they get breakfast, bacon, eggs, give some to Reckless. Now, here's the problem. They kind of have smuggled this horse out and they don't know what to do with it. They also can't let the government find out where the horse is because the government is actively trying to destroy her for no reason. Then, once Reckless gets to Camp Pendleton, the American public finds out that Reckless made it home and everybody's super pumped. They want to know all about it. The news is getting involved. America's celebrating because fucking America's warhorse made it home. This is awesome. At which point, the
Too bad
high-ranking
the
Marine
agriculture,
officers
yeah.
that were going to abandon her are like, holy shit. Wow. What a great idea. You guys smuggled her all the way here, and we're just going to take credit for it because this is going really well for us. We had no idea that the American public would be okay with us doing the right thing and bringing a war hero home. We thought the American public wanted us spending millions and billions of dollars teaching fucking pigeons how to drive missiles and strapping napalm bombs onto bats and shit. We had no idea that doing the right thing would be so popular. So then they throw a big parade. They have a big
I will say it is kind of insane, just like the extent of like, just to what point the military system gets to, where it's just like they constantly make the wrong fucking choices PR wise. That has always historically happened, I must say. Like they're so fucking out of touch with like how these billions, potentially trillions of dollars should be spent in what aspect. They'll spend billions of dollars on a concept that you could tell a fucking second grader this concept, and the second grader would tell you, oh yeah, that's not gonna fucking work, it's not gonna bear any fruit, like, you know what I mean? But they'll spend, you know, billions of dollars in 5 years on it, you know what I mean? But they won't, like, you know, bring a fucking a war horse home, like, you know what I mean? And an animal that was used by troops in theater and is a morale booster, a symbol of the regiment, if you will. Nah, that's asking too much. Like, it's fucking crazy to me. I don't know.
Idea that doing the right thing would be so popular. So then they throw a big parade, they have a big ceremony. Reckless gets promoted to E5 sergeant in the Marine Corps. They hook her up with this cool ass blanket. She gets awarded 2 Purple Hearts, 1 for each piece of shrapnel she took during the Battle of Outpost Vegas. It's a huge deal. She starts doing commercials, endorsements. The rule with that was she doesn't work for free. She's willing to do charity events for free. Anything else, if somebody wanted her to endorse a product, it had to be a product she actually liked. If it was food, it better be food she liked. If it was a drink, it better be a drink that she liked drinking. Otherwise, she wasn't going to do it. And those companies had to pay $1,000 for the privilege of working with Sergeant Reckless, and that money went to a charity for the Marine Corps. And here's the thing with Reckless being a sergeant.
That's a good cause.
Most animals are like, oh, they're such and such rank, they're this rank, but they're not actually that rank. It's just like a symbolic thing. With Reckless, it was not a symbolic thing. The Marines treated her like she was truly and legitimately a sergeant in the Marine Corps. Nobody that was a lower rank than her was allowed to give her orders or tell her what to do, okay? If the privates were standing around eating food and stuff, and Reckless wandered up and nudged one, that was an order to share some food, and that private needed to obey it. She was given her own private stable right outside the post commander's house, and there was a standing order that she was never to carry anything heavier than her blanket ever again. Sergeant Reckless even had an assistant. Every time they got a batch of new recruits, they would find out who the farm kid was, and he would be tasked with taking care of Sergeant Reckless. Now, part of taking care of Sergeant Reckless was taking her out for her daily exercise. Now, how do you exercise a horse if you can't ride a horse because there's a standing order that she can't carry anything heavier than her blanket, and even if she could, you wouldn't be allowed to ride her because she's a higher rank than you? I have no idea. Neither did the Marine Corps, so they told this private, fucking figure it out. So this kid just had to start running next to Reckless 5 miles a day, every day. And this pattern carried on. Every time a new kid came, he just started running 5 miles a day with Reckless, and it became a running joke. Jesus Christ, literally a running joke that whoever was taking care of Reckless was the most in-shape Marine in the Marine Corps. After
I could see
the
that.
PR started to die down, but the high-ranking officers in the Marine Corps didn't want that to happen because having the Marine Corps in the headlines all the time was really good. So they concocted a plan to stay in the headlines even longer. They were going to get some badass, thoroughbred.
I will say it's very interesting, like the farm kid, of course, like made to take care of Reckless, but they actually like straight up treated this horse like with the integrity of the rank. Horse gives you a nudge, that's an order, you know what I mean? Like kind of shit. Like that's very interesting. I don't know if they if that is like a dramatization or if they were actually that serious with it. I assume being Marines, they were probably actually that serious with it, you know, which is awesome to see, man. Again, it just goes to show you the respect that they had for it. Because animals, man, again, like logistical animals like that, they really, really can make the difference when it matters.
Concocted a plan to stay in the headlines even longer. They were going to get some badass, thoroughbred, Kentucky Derby winning racehorse in here to have a kid with Sergeant Reckless. So that's exactly what they do. They find the thoroughbred horse they're going to breed her with. They hire this PR firm getting ready for all the news and publicity and blah, blah, blah. And then in true military fashion, the officers then proceed to not tell anybody that they fucking should. You know, like the private that's in charge of taking care of Sergeant Reckless. So from his perspective, one day he gets an order, seemingly for no fucking reason, to take Sergeant Reckless over to the normal horse stables, which never, ever happens, and stick her into an empty pen. So that's what he does. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go get lunch now or take a shit or whatever. So he leaves for a minute and one of the other Marines comes by and then sticks just your normal garden variety Marine bucking horse in the same pen as Reckless, not knowing it was Reckless because Reckless is never in those pens anyways. So fast forward a little bit, Sergeant Reckless's assistant comes back and Reckless and this bucking horse are midway through a horizontal jogging session he's not about to get in there and stop it. Okay, now Sergeant Reckless's assistant is having a full-on panic attack because Sergeant Reckless, the pride of the Marine Corps, is currently getting taken to Pound Town on his watch, and he is definitely gonna be in trouble for it. So as soon as they finish, he runs in, gets Reckless, takes her in the barn, he's brushing out her mane, he's getting the scratches off of her sides, he's trying to hide all the evidence. And then while they're in the barn taking care of that, that other bucking horse gets taken out of the pen, and this big old fancy truck pulls up with this big old fancy trailer, and this big ass Kentucky Derby winning thoroughbred racehorse gets unloaded and put in the pen that Reckless was just in. He gets done cleaning Reckless up in the barn, takes her out, and everybody's like, bro, what are you doing? Reckless is supposed to be in there with this other horse. Get him in there. So then all those guys leave to get lunch or do whatever, and Sergeant Reckless's assistant is like, okay, there's no way I'm leaving. I'm not going to have this happen again. I'm going to stay here the entire time and make sure there's no hanky-panky. There'll be no riding the baloney pony around here ever again. I gotta make sure this does not happen. So he sits there and cock blocks this thoroughbred the entire time. So as far as he's concerned, mission accomplished. Nobody ever needs to know that Reckless got deflowered on his watch. It's gonna be fine. Then fast forward 28 days later, he shows up at Reckless's stable first thing in the morning to take care of her, and there's a bunch of high-ranking military officers and a bunch of news crews right outside the stable. He rolls up like, what's going on? And the general is like, Reckless is pregnant. And he's like, oh, okay. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no, that's great. That's a terrific thing. At this point, the news crews have kind of put together that this is a kid in charge of taking care of Sergeant Reckless. So one of them yells out, hey, what's the name of that thoroughbred racehorse that she's having the baby with again? At which point he just responds like, what are you talking about? I don't know its name. It was just one of the random Marine bucking horses we had in the pen. Record scratch, dead silence, pure confusion. The general grabs this private, yanks him around.
Wait. So is that actually how it happened? Like straight up, this fucking random private was asked and he's like, bro, I don't know. Some random horse did it. Like straight up. Is that what happened? So they didn't tell him at all. And then, oh my God. What a fucking army thing to happen though. Like no communication going on. Damn, dude. Straight up, like that's rough. Let's see what this general has to say with him. Is he gonna fucking ring him out?
Dead silence, pure confusion. The general grabs this private, yanks him around the corner of the stable. It's like, what the fuck did you just say? So he explains to the general everything that happened, and the general is like, you idiot. Reckless was supposed to sleep with that big ass thoroughbred racehorse. To which he's like, well, somebody should have told me that. I don't know what to tell you. So now the plan is officially ruined. The news crews leave, and the PR firm has to figure out how to piece this thing back together. And the plan they come up with is to get a big ass sign and put it up on the hill by Camp Pendleton. And the sign simply says, it's a ... Yeah, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, in the plot twists that absolutely nobody saw coming, the United States Marine Corps is actually responsible for inventing gender reveals. And that's how they still managed to generate a bunch of hype for Sergeant Reckless's kid, getting the entire world to speculate as to whether or not it was going to be a boy or a girl. The pregnancy goes great. She goes on to give birth to a colt, aka a boy. They go out, write boy in big blue letters on their sign, and then the Marines throw a big ass party because they're amped, unwittingly throwing the world's first ever gender reveal party, which I'm gonna hold against the Marine Corps forever. But now everybody wants to know.
That is very strange. I never actually thought of it like that they would actually be the ones to start that. Holy shit. Is that actually where it came from? Gender reveal parties weren't a thing ever before then? What the fuck? Oh my God.
The reveal party, which I'm going to hold against
cultural
the Marine
significance
Corps forever. But now everybody wants to know, what are we going to name this young colt? So the high-ranking Marine officers step in again, and they're like, I have another great PR idea. Let's have a competition where all the Marines can submit their ideas for names. We'll pick the best one, and that guy can win a week of leave. Brilliant idea. So that's exactly what they do. Hundreds of Marines send in their ideas for names. The front runners were like Semper Fi, Freedom, Liberty, pretty generic stuff, but that's what you have to do when you have a big public figure like Sergeant Reckless and her new baby. But the commanding officer in charge is just like, I don't like any of these names. I'm going to name it myself. So he just decides that he's going to pick a random private and be like, hey, you're the winner, even though you didn't pick the name, but I'm just going to say you're the winner so I don't look like an asshole. And then he named the cult Fearless, which that's a great name. I'm just getting really, really jaded with bureaucrats and high-ranking officers in this video for some reason. Sorry about that. Anyway,
it's not for some reason. There's a reason for it.
Sergeant Reckless is now getting promoted to Staff Sergeant Reckless E6. There's a 1,700-man parade, a 19-gun salute. The Marines make a huge deal out of it because, well, Reckless deserves it. So that's what they do. And in the crowd that day was none other than the new Private Fearless of the United States Marine Corps, which I thought was pretty cool. Later that year, she would give birth to another boy named Dauntless, and then a couple years after that, she would give birth to yet another boy named Chesty, named after Chesty Puller, the most decorated Marine of all time, and as rumor has it, the last Marine to ever ride Reckless. From there, Sergeant Reckless would retire and spend the rest of her life living on Camp Pendleton as the highly regarded, highly respected war hero that she was before passing away in 1968. So in conclusion, this has been the...
That's an old horse, man. So 1950, so like 18 years. That's an old horse, and I don't know how old the horse was when they got her, right? But like, holy shit. And I wonder if this is like her kids here. I guess we'll see, right? But damn, what an old horse. Like, actually lived a very good life considering the diet of beer and bacon and eggs and shit and whatnot. You know, I definitely didn't think you know, no offense that a horse would live that long living like that, but clearly not bad. Holy.
Story of Sergeant Reckless, the hero of Outpost Vegas, America's greatest warhorse, the four-legged Marine that fought during the Korean War, which is commonly referred to as the Forgotten War. But as is the case with most of us, it's not that we forgot it, it's that we were never taught about it in the first place. So
True.
If you made it this far in the video, I really hope that you learned something. If you wanted to support the channel, best way to do that is go check out thefatelectrician.com. We got merch, I got a Patreon with deleted scenes. Otherwise, until next time, quack bang, out.
Nice. So there's gonna be a little skit here at the end,
What are you
maybe?
still doing here? Leave. I have to go enjoy my not single-ply toilet paper
Of course.
that I got at the store just for me.
Very nice, very nice. Guessing that's the end. Wow, guys, that was awesome. That was America's Warhorse Marine Sergeant Reckless by the Fat Electrician, guys. Yes, awesome to check that video out. Really, really good to see just how honored, I guess, like actual animals of war are in America, I suppose. You know, we had a duck, you know, that was taken care of by the Marine Corps, and now this time, obviously, a horse. Now, a horse had a lot more of a role to play, I guess, in combat, I guess. Or at least in the logistical supply chain of combat, and that's very much why this horse got that rank. They treated it with great respect, and I wonder if there is like a tradition, if there is like a lineage of Sergeant Reckless. Like, you know, can you still in America today, is there just direct descendants of Sergeant Reckless, you know, that are for sale and stuff like that? I'm actually genuinely curious, like, where that bloodline kind of ended up, because they clearly breeded those horses, and I'm sure those horses probably breeded. Yeah, it'd be interesting to find that out. But if you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe for more content from me. Of course, leave recommendations down in the comments below. And big thank you to all of our members. Oliver, Hastati, Principe, Dagenhart, of course, our Prefects, Fear, and Hobbit. Appreciate you guys. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day. And with that, guys, this has been Centurion. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.